organized, nonviolent resistance is the most powerful weapon.
Can we all get along?
Canada's reputation is one of peacekeeping, wide-open landscapes, and of course, polite, nice people.
Ryan Gosling, like all the nicest people, is Canadian.
And while we've had our share of protests over the years, it still takes a major issue to get us up on our feet and into the streets. But Canadians are now protesting, the latest over the passing of an Islamophobia motion and fights over prayer in schools. What does religious accommodation look like in 2017? I'm Lorna Dueck.
And I'm Sheldon Neal.
And I'm Molly Thomas.
And you're watching Context.
Mr. Speaker, I come to this discussion as a person of faith, like so many other Canadians.
The most controversial word in Canada, Islamophobia. We explore Motion 103 passed in Canada's Parliament. Christian activists weigh in on their concerns over religious freedom and fears over ground lost. Police intervene in a school board meeting that erupts over Muslim prayer in school. That's ahead. We want to hear from you tonight. We stream live on YouTube and on a special way in Facebook. And Sheldon Neal, you've got more.
That is right, Lorna. Every week on Facebook, I'll be hosting a web stream from the studio. So check our air times at contextwithlorna.com and see all that's happening behind the scenes.
And we want to hear from you. We're on Facebook and Twitter. Join the conversation. But now, over to Molly Thomas with news stories from this past week.
Thanks, Lorna. Here are some of the stories that caught our attention. Just 2 months into his presidency, Donald Trump is being sued by a group of First Amendment attorneys. This over access to data that identifies whose electronics are being searched at the U.S. border.
It was a great meeting.
But Trump's troubles don't stop there. The president's health care defeat has pundits wondering if his administration will now seek support from moderate Democrats. So the big question remains, will Trump try to repair Obamacare? The Liberal government has announced that marijuana will be legal in Canada by July 2018. The federal government will be in charge of making sure the supply is safe and secure. Ottawa will license producers. But provinces, they still have the right to decide how much marijuana is distributed and sold. And the world has as little as 3 months to save millions of people from starvation in Yemen and Somalia. The last time famine was declared in the Horn of Africa, more than 250,000 people died. Half of that number were dead before famine was even mentioned. In Somalia alone, 6 million people are in dire humanitarian need. The UN is sounding the alarm bells, so famine is also affecting people in South Sudan and North Nigeria as well. Altogether, 20 million people are suffering. And I was recently in Somalia. We are on the ground with a special report coming up in the next few weeks. Lorna, back to you.
Thanks, Molly. Well, we're calling it the hottest word in Canada right now, Islamophobia. But that has not stopped Canada's Parliament from voting 201 to 91 in adopting M103. It's a non-binding motion, not a law, that calls on the government to condemn Islamophobia on all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination. M103 kicks into gear now with an 8-month study on how the government should address the issue. And we contacted Liberal MP Ikra Khalid, who presented M103, but her office declined requests for an interview. Helping us understand what this motion means, Raheel Raza is a devout Muslim who's actually against the idea of M103. Raheel, thank you for coming. Tell me what Islamophobia means. We're kind of all unsure to define that.
Thank you, you and thousands of Canadians. So Islamophobia is a term that was put together after 9/11 by the Muslim Brotherhood. It was very carefully thought out, and it was created after 9/11 to stop any criticism or discussion or debate about Islam or Muslims. And this is exactly what M103 is doing. It is effectively stopping any discussion or debate about Islam or Muslims, curbing our freedom of speech in Canada. This is something that should never have happened.
Okay, we felt that there was a long debate. It got far more heated in the House of Commons, and you see it in the public square. What's your view on how this is being rolled out?
Well, it's very troubling because Muslims like us, who are progressive liberal Muslims and who are, loyal to Canada and believe in separation of church and state and freedom of speech, should have been taken into consideration. But of course, we were not. So let me give you a quick rundown on this. Muslims are 3.2% of the population of Canada today. In the GTA, there are over 100 mosques of many different denominations, which shows you there is total freedom of religion. There are 11 Muslim MPs in the government who were elected by non-Muslims. So where is the Islamophobia that they're talking about? Now, if they had used the word xenophobia, I would have supported it 110%. We all need to be careful of xenophobia against everyone. But why are Muslims being given a special status? Okay,
we're going to go now to a Skype call of another Muslim activist, as you are, but another one who feels a little differently about this. Naseem Mithawani is with us. She thinks M103 is needed. Naseem, are you there?
Yes, I am. Okay,
thank you. We were worried our Skype connection was choppy tonight, but you sound loud and clear. Tell me why you believe we need, you disagree with Raheel, why do we need Islamophobia motions in Canada?
Well, I think this particular motion, I think it's important to note a couple of things. Firstly, it doesn't only target a Muslim population. We know that the wording of the motion is so inclusive of all religious discrimination and systemic racism, including Islamophobia. So that's first and foremost. We know also that motions like this are not uncommon. We've had motions condemning anti-Semitism, for example, in 2015, also condemning discrimination against Coptic Christians. So this is something that happens frequently in the House of Commons. So why did we need it this time? I think it's because Muslims at this particular point in Canadian history are a vulnerable group. And we can't really argue with the statistics on this. The statistics show that there's been more than a doubling of hate crimes against Muslims in a 3-year period, whereas for every other religious group, those rates have gone down. So we're seeing an upwards trend. Of course, we've had the tragic incident in Quebec. And what's interesting to note is that since Quebec, post-Quebec, there's actually been a further spike of hate crimes.
Okay, let's take a break right there, Naseem, and I just want to get Raheel to quickly respond to that.
Well, yes. First of all, I don't know where these statistics came from, because according to the statistics I read, the highest group that there has been hate against are the Jewish community, followed by the Black community, followed by the LGBTQ community, and surprisingly enough, fourth on the list was the white man. Fifth were the Muslims. Oh. So definitely that is not the issue, that Muslims are being targeted in the streets, which is what this impression that this gives. In terms of the Quebec mosque, I find it so disturbing when that is always brought in. It was way before. And secondly, that was a criminal offense. That was a terrorist attack, and it should be addressed as such.
Well, I think all of us are alarmed that we are having, police having to do hate investigations on this. Okay, both of you, thank you for helping us understand. This is all about being better neighbors. Naseem and Raheel Raza, thank you both very much. All right. Well, Sheldon Neal, our social media is almost too dangerous to read.
Yes. Now, we were taking a look at all the action happening on social media. Of course, I wasn't able to put everything on air really for you, quite frankly, because most of the comments were quite divisive. But we did take to our Twitter page and ask a simple question. Does religion have a place in public schools? 2 answers came back. Let's go to the screens. First one, at Context TV, at religion, or rather all religions have and should have been accommodated in public space. Next one, short and sweet. The answer is no. For now, my friends, we're going to continue to unpack this, but for now, that is your social media and online update.
Joining me now is Saskatchewan MP David Anderson. David, you're one of those many members of Parliament who did not vote in favor of Motion 103. Why not?
Well, we had a good debate in the House of Commons about M103 and also about a second motion that I proposed. We were very concerned about M103 because it used the word Islamophobia without any definition of the word. If you're familiar with the word, of course, you know that it gets used in very different ways in different contexts. When we saw the motion come forward, we went to the MP who was supporting it or proposing it, And we suggested to her that she could get our support if she would be willing to make a couple of amendments. And one of them would just be to change the word Islamophobia to hatred against Muslims. She told us she had to go to the PMO to get permission to do that. She did not get that and came back and said she could not amend the motion. So we actually presented one of our own that we felt was had more inclusive wording. Surprisingly, the Liberals voted against that.
Okay, let's just stop right there for a minute because I want to unpack two things. You would think hatred to Muslims, to actually have that in a motion, would be supported, but rather you objected to the idea that it was given a fuzzy word called Islamophobia?
Yeah, we just said it has no definition to it, and if you're familiar with the term and how it's used around the world, it sets up a lot of barriers to being able to have a good discussion. And basically in my speech in the House, I said, this actually shuts down discussion. It doesn't open it up. We need to have a mature conversation in this country about the role of Islam, and this motion was not the way to do that.
All right, now let's talk about the inclusive wording that you wanted put out instead. Your motion called to condemn all forms of systemic racism, religious intolerance, discrimination of Christians, Jews, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindu. Why do you think that didn't stand a chance?
Well, actually, we were really surprised. I thought that the Liberals would support it and then support their own as well, but they came out, doubled down and said they would not support our motion, and so they voted against that. I don't know why you'd have to ask them. We had already expressed our opposition to M103 and just pointed out that without a definition of that word, we did not feel comfortable supporting it. Interestingly enough, as the debate went along, I know that there were Liberal MPs who were squeezed very hard on this. Some of our friends who have strong Muslim communities even told me that their Muslim community just wanted to get rid of this debate. They did not want to see it happening. They did not want to see it continue. And so it was frustrating within the Muslim community. It was frustrating outside. And I think M103 did not get the results that the Liberals intended when they brought it forward.
It's just a motion. It's not a bill. It just means we're going to committee to study it. Should we be alarmed? Is it just a discussion?
Well, we've had lots of motions come forward that recommended that things go to committee. I've never actually heard that argument before, that what we brought forward doesn't matter. If it didn't matter, I don't know why they brought it forward. If it does matter, then it's significant and it needs to be examined. I'm actually looking forward to the committee hearings. I would like to have the committee focus on setting some definition of Islamophobia, if we're going to use the word in Canada, or some way that we can have a mature conversation about the role of Islam. One of the things that I really appreciated that came out of this was actually the condemnation of some of the teaching that we're seeing in some of the mosques across the country. I think this was the first time that we saw Liberal MPs come out and say, this is unacceptable. And certainly there was a strong reaction against a couple of those mosques, and that was good to see, because we need to separate the extremism from the average, if you want to call it, from the middle. And we've got extremists at both ends, but we've got a ton of people in the middle who just want to live together. They want to raise their kids together. They want to be able to go to school together. And we need to have that conversation about that issue.
Thank you very much, David Anderson, MP from Cypress Hills, Saskatchewan, and who introduced another motion to counter M103. We'll watch where those discussions go. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
After the break, religion in schools, why one Christian university is taking their fight all the way to the Supreme Court. A school board in crisis after it chose to allow prayer for Muslim students on Fridays. Many parents disagree with any religion in the public school system. Sheldon Neal with that story coming up.
Here are some of the stories making headlines this week.
Voters turning their outrage into online worldwide trends.
Why healthcare workers kill.
The opioid crisis is a health crisis.
So how do we weed out the noise?
Well, this is an issue our next guest is an expert on.
We have a lineup of religious leaders from the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish faith communities.
I'm Lorna Dueck.
And I'm Sheldon Neal.
You're watching Context Live. The Ontario government says inclusion is the only way forward when it comes to religion in schools, and that means the province will endorse Friday Muslim prayers for students. We connected Ontario's Education Minister Mitzi Hunter, whose office told us she's released a statement that in part says Ontario is a diverse province and all school boards are required to have religious accommodations in place. So Sheldon Neal now with a parent's side to the story.
Thank you, Lorna. Yes, not all parents see eye to eye at this school. In fact, there is a parent-led petition calling for the end of religious accommodation that reached more than 5,000 signatures and growing. Mike Bayer signed that petition. Mike, you signed that petition to keep religion out of your own children's school. Why?
Well, first off, thank you for having me. We certainly have the Human Rights Commission which has ruled that religious accommodation is to be provided to the students. And on an individual basis, that's fine. The trouble is, within the Peel District School Board, they are providing a special accommodation only for one group. And that is unequal and unfair treatment is leading to a lot of conflict and resentment within the school systems.
What do you say to Muslim students who say, I cannot be a Canadian living with religious freedom? If I cannot pray in my Muslim gathering, you're putting, how should I say, blocks on me. What do you say to those who are voicing that concern? You're putting them in a box.
Absolutely not. The Islamic students can and should be accommodated at their mosque or wherever they choose to congregate. It does not have to be on the school property.
Bringing religion in schools brings invisible segregation. When we spoke off camera, gender segregation, you thought, and also stress on children. Can you unpack that for us? What does that really mean?
We shouldn't have any type of gender discrimination in our schools. Within these Friday prayer meetings, there is gender segregation. Male and female students are not allowed to come together. Okay. The female students are separated. Okay. And in fact, some of the female students, depending on the time of month, are not even allowed to come into the prayer meetings.
So we want to create a Canada where people belong, where there is integration, where there's a sharing of different views, where there's peace. What is the midpoint on this issue? Where can we move from this point?
Well, there's no problem with accommodating any religious group, but they can do it on their own church, their own mosque, their own temple, their own gurdwara. It does not have to be during school hours on public school property.
Mike Bayer, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
To Alberta now for a look at religious concerns in schools there. Sheldon Johnson is a father of 5. He joins us from Medicine Hat. Sheldon, you're a Christian parent. Why do you feel shut out of the formation of your children's education in Alberta?
Well, thank you, Lorna. We have 5 children, 3 of them with disabilities. And over the last 2 years, the Education Ministry has brought in some sweeping changes that affect able-bodied and disabled children. And we have been attempting to communicate our concerns to the ministry and to our local school boards and within our local school. And we've been facing a number of hurdles. The government has just been very abrupt and very resistant to listening to parents' concerns.
And what is the religious concern that you've got with your school system?
Well, first of all, with freedom of speech, my son, my autistic son, who is moderate functioning, he tried to quote a Bible verse to be able to communicate his concerns. And there was an activist that was present at the school board meeting, and she shouted him down. He was very affected by this particular activist. And on top of that, the school board chair was attending the meeting, and he came over and lectured my son.
Is this climate getting worse? Is this part of M103? Is this just a change that you're seeing happen where you feel shut out as a Christian family at a dialogue like that?
We have concerns that our Christian school will be forced to accept changes that we as parents find unconscionable. And the ministry refuses to listen to us. and the local school board, and even the principal is being pressured not to allow parents to have input in their own child's education.
Have you any solutions for the impasse it sounds like parents in your shoes are in?
Well, I think that all families need to be treated equally, whether you're Christian or non-Christian, no matter what identity that you come from. Everyone should be allowed to have input. I think there's no reason to be afraid of parents advocating for their children. And I think that if we are freely allowed to communicate, we can work out these challenges.
All right. Sheldon Johnson from Parents' Choice in Education in Medicine Hat, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, in universities, religious freedoms may be a bit easier. You can find prayer rooms, interfaith spaces, Christian clubs, faith clubs on every campus across the country. But one university continues to be in the spotlight for its Christian religious views. Molly Thomas, you've got an update for us.
That's right, Lorna. So Trinity Western University now knows that they will present their case for a law school to the Supreme Court of Canada. That's going to take place November 30th. Of this year. So that's a big step forward.
And this case is going to the Supreme Court because Trinity has a condition where when you sign up to be a student there, you agree to live by a very detailed, idealistic code of conduct which comes out of their rooted Christian faith. It includes behavior over sexual activity, over cheating, over lying, drunkenness, drugs, all those kinds of things, including marriage will be it will have only marriage, be for marriage and between a man and a woman.
Right.
And it's landed them all the way to the Supreme Court.
That's right. And the latest appeal, so basically most jurisdictions in Canada have said yes to Trinity Western having a law school. It offers up 60 more spaces in the country. That's good for law students trying to get in. But 3 jurisdictions, the Nova Scotia Barrister Society, the Law Society of BC, and the Law Society of Upper Canada, which is here in Ontario, are saying they refuse to recognize future graduates. So each provincial court of appeal looked at these challenges. Trinity Western, they actually won in BC and Nova Scotia, but not in Ontario. So that final decision will be left up to the Supreme Court.
Well, this is an issue our next guest is an expert on.
We have a lineup of religious leaders from the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish faith communities.
I'm Lorna Dueck.
And I'm Sheldon Neal.
And I'm Molly Thomas.
And you're watching Context Live.
Well, how far is too far when it comes to religious accommodation? Christian professor Scott Mason believes M103 is anti-Canadian. Zari Gill was raised in a Muslim country. Thank you both for being here. Zari, I want to start with you. What are your concerns around M103?
The biggest concern that I have is that it is causing polarization and divisiveness, which is not what we stand for in Canada. It is not what we have seen up to this point in the Canadian way of life and society. We stand for pluralism, we stand for multiculturalism, we stand for everybody having the same rights and equity. Especially, you know, like the systemic support that we have from our Charter of Rights, our Canadian Criminal Code, Canadian Code of Human Rights, all of them are ample enough. Or maybe it's a question to our government, are they ample enough? Or are they saying that there's a flaw? Or is there a gap? Or are these documents or these systemic support systems not able to meet the overall goal, are not able to deliver on the promise of the overall goal of security and protection of Canadian citizens? So that's why that is the biggest point that I fail to understand. That M103 is going to add something to it.
Scott, I want to ask about the word Islamophobia. I know you have an issue with that word. If it said, you know, anti-Muslim sentiment, would we be having another conversation?
I think we would. I mean, the pedigree for Islamophobia is it's a Muslim Brotherhood term. It's used to silence dissent. It's a soft way of introducing Sharia law. If you think about it, a phobia is a fear that lacks any rational basis. It's an irrational fear. And Islam, furthermore, we think it refers to Muslims, which it does, but within Islam there are various sects which all regard one another as apostates. So even the term Islamophobia, these groups and many Muslims object to the term of Islamophobia precisely because they think it's going to be wielded against them. So the combination of the two makes it intensely problematic when you're trying to find in a study whether there is Islamophobia. There, you know, what are we looking for exactly? Because the term is meaningless.
I know you both have said that you'd be satisfied if all religious groups were included in that motion without singling one out. It does remind me, though, I think of, you know, the Black Lives Matter campaign. A marginalized group came out and said, hey, our rights are not being heard, so we need to step out and say something. Then an All Lives Matter campaign started, and trying to equalize, I guess, the pain that these groups are feeling. Isn't this the same type of thing? We have a marginalized group that is saying we're struggling, we want to be heard. What's wrong with that?
The problem in both cases is that they're trying to elevate the idea of group rights. The Western legal system in our whole society is based on the concept of individual rights. It's based on the idea that we bear the image of God. Every person bears the image of God, the Imago Dei, every individual person, and therefore we have rights under the law, and equally so, irrespective of station, sex, race, whatever you have. Whereas this is advancing the idea of group rights. Now, group rights seems to advance the oppressed minorities, but it oppresses the most vulnerable minority of all, namely the individual. And so individuals get crushed by these group rights, and we see increasingly in universities, and now in this case, the fear is that that's exactly what's going to happen. Freedom of speech is going to be crushed.
Sorry, I'm going to get you to comment on our next quote. We have a Professor Lee Beach from McMaster's Divinity School. He has some words on religious accommodation in his book, Church in Exile. Here's what he has to say. He said, responding to an increasingly pluralistic culture will constantly challenge us to be open-hearted towards all people. It will cause us to see the beauty of all people and affirm the work of God in them, even if they themselves are unaware of it or reject it. Zari, how do we do that when we disagree with motions that are going forward in our country?
I think we are very well prepared because the level of acceptance and trust is already very high. You know, 11 MPs in the Canadian Parliament who are Muslims were voted in by 90% of non-Muslim voters. How much more trust and acceptance do we expect from the society? You know, they are friends, like Ikra Khalid, she's a friend. She's from the same school where my brother went to school. Because, you know, like you said, I was raised in Pakistan. So there is trust, there is friendship, there is Eid celebrations together, there is food choices are there. Halal food choices are offered everywhere. Restaurants, you know, grocery stores. And these are just few small things of everyday life.
We could talk about this forever. Thank you both for being here so much, Scott and Zari. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, as you heard on today's program, the people of the book are having a squabble in Canada, and it did launch over Motion 103. Well, here's something curious about religious people. Your faith shapes your life. There's no difference between sacred and secular for people committed to their faith. We don't stop living our religion the minute we step out the door. It's part of us. It goes everywhere we go. And that's why religious freedom is a big deal. And here's what else is a very big deal. As a Christian, we are always free to live with love. And that's the biggest command our Lord Jesus gave us, is that we treat our neighbor with love. Sure, there's been a fear of persecution, and there's endless examples around the globe of outrageous persecution. But all through Canada, from coast to coast, we have Canadians wanting to get along better, and it's our job now to model forward with the love that Jesus challenged us to be better neighbors, to care for each other, even despite our disagreements. Thanks for joining Context. Lots more on the web. Check it out there and leave your comments for us. We'd love to hear more from you. Thanks for joining us.